Hi there. Hi, Steve Coffin here. Thank you for the many comments that I received in response to my previous video where I asked, what are the problems you have in learning specific languages? Today I'm going to talk about the subjunctive in French, which was one of the more common difficulties that people expressed in their comments. Remember, if you like my videos on language learning, please subscribe. So, the subjunctive in French. I think it was Harry Truman who said, it's not difficult to know what the right thing to do is, the difficulty is doing it. So I think with the subjunctive, the basic principle is not that difficult. In other words, anytime you have a situation where there is doubt, in other words, it's any situation of uncertainty, possibility, even obligation. In other words, it's not certain that something is going to happen. That's where the subjunctive comes into play. So, I have to do something. Il faut que je fasse. Il me semble que cela soit. It seems to me. Je ne pense pas. I don't think that it is. Je ne pense pas que ça soit. Je ne pense pas qu'il vienne. Anything that is uncertain like that implies the subjunctive. Simple rule. Now, the fact is that many people are very fluent in French and don't use the subjunctive correctly all of the time, okay? And that includes French people. So, for casual conversation, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, I think as a matter of personal pride, certainly I like to use the subjunctive correctly as often as I can, but I don't worry about when I miss it. And very often I'll watch a video that I did in French and I'll see that there were cases where I should have used the subjunctive and I didn't. And that's the other thing about mistakes in general. It's normal that we sometimes get it right and sometimes get it wrong. It doesn't matter what the issue is. Articles for people speaking English who are native speakers of a language that has no articles. Sometimes they get the article right and sometimes they get it wrong. Not a big deal. Now, it depends, of course, what your goals are. If you're communicating casually in conversation, it's not so crucial. Even if you're using French on Twitter or you're doing business via email, I don't think people are going to be worried about whether you get the subjunctive right. However, if you're living and working in France or if you're in an academic environment and you have to get it right, then of course it's a bigger deal. But fortunately, most of the time, if we're writing something that's more formal, we have access to Google. So we can Google, il faut que. Does that take the subjunctive? You just put up il faut que and you'll see. What exactly is the imperfect subjunctive or whatever? Google, conjugate the verb venir. And you'll see what the subjunctive in that tense is. So when you're writing in a more formal situation, you have the ability to find out, what is correct usage. When you're speaking, naturally, if you have to every time think about whether this is the subjunctive or not the subjunctive, you'll be tongue-tied, so I don't recommend doing that. Now, insofar as how to get better at the subjunctive, all right, you can read the rules. It'll be two paragraphs, and you'll understand the basic principle, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it right. You're only going to get it right if you develop certain habits. And this is the same with so many aspects of languages, and I'm going to get into these in later videos where I address some of the comments that you made. You have to develop certain habits. And the way you develop the habit is to focus, to start noticing, and in a concentrated fashion. So, for example, and let me also say that I'm not a teacher, so I'm not going to teach you the subjunctive, but I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm going to use my experience and how I deal with the subjunctive in French. You have to start noticing it. So if you read and you see the subjunctive or what you think is the subjunctive, underline it. When you hear it, try to notice it a little bit. The other thing, of course, I study on LINQ. So I would recommend, if you're using LINQ, and I do recommend that you use LINQ, there's a number of things that you can do. LINQ, of course, LINGQ, that's the website that I'm a co-founder of and where I have done all of my language learning for the last 10 years. And so one of the things that I can do is, as I'm reading, first, of course, I can save words and save them to my database for review. I can say, il faut que je sache, il faut que tu saches, you have to know. I can save the sache, okay? If I save the sache as a word, S-A-C-H-E-S, il faut que tu saches, I can tag that as the subjunctive. Also, by saving the word sache, which is the subjunctive, then I automatically end up with 4, 5, 6 example phrases, chunks of language that the link system captures. So I can review those. So I'm getting this concentrated exposure to this subjunctive pattern, at least in the use of the word sache. And we have text-to-speech for each of these captured chunks of language, so I can listen to them, and it's just driving. So, il faut que tu saches, il faut que tu saches. So that's starting to become a habit. Now, I can save, il me semble que cela ne soit pas, okay? Soit, I can save soit. Tag it again as the subjunctive, and I can do the same. I can also save the phrase, il faut que tu sois. Il faut que ça soit. And so I save these phrases. So, and when I go to review my words or phrases, I can, in the vocabulary section, say I only want to review phrases only which are tagged subjunctive. So now I've got a whole bunch of these that are concentrated examples of the subjunctive in use. So in doing this, and I've done this, for example, in Russian for cases and stuff like that, you have to get that concentrated exposure. I often talk in language learning about the big picture, which is listening and reading to things of interest, but you do have to spend some time with the nuts and bolts if you want to get better at them. Because by spending time with the nuts and bolts, you get better at noticing what's happening in the language, and the better you notice the language, the more likely you are to start reproducing the language correctly. Now, you don't have to be a member of LINC or use LINC, but that's just as an example. So if you don't not on LINC, you're reading a newspaper, you see the subjunctive, underline it. Somehow make a note of it. Start to fix that in your brain, and eventually the brain will get used to it. Because in order to get the subjunctive correct on the fly while you're speaking, you have to have those habits ingrained in you. And then you don't have to think about, is this the subjunctive? What is the subjunctive third person, past, present, future? It'll just come out naturally because you have been exposed to those phrases so often. So there you have it. That's my take on the subjunctive in French. I look forward to your comments. Bye for now.